Having been on 4 convoys over the last year, there are many problems that can occur with any humanitarian aid convoy, and I think it's really important to try and minimise those problems at the offset. We're in a time where it's getting more and more difficult to take aid convoys into Syria because of the ongoing escalation in violence. From my experiences of the past few convoys, there are logistical problems, obviously, problems with vehicles en route, problems at the delays at the border, etc. And then once you get inside Syria, then there are other problems inside. Obviously, in recent times there's been a lot of escalation in violence amongst the different factions in the northwest, which is where many of these convoys come in. And you really need to really take calculated risks. You need to be communicating with your counterparts, your Syrian counterparts on the inside, to make sure that it is safe for you to take those convoys in, and that the aid can be distributed safely without ending up in the wrong hands. And the best way to do that is to make sure that you have got effective communication with solid partnerships on the inside, Syrians that know the communities and they know where the most neediest people are. I think definitely the situation has become more difficult inherently since the last few months, where a tiny minority of individuals have gone out to Syria for other purposes that are separate to humanitarian aid convoys, but have gone under the guise of humanitarian aid convoys. It's posed very real questions about charities looking at their own procedures and protocols to make sure that we are ensuring that we're not allowing individuals that are going out for other motives to the area. Of course, we're talking about a tiny individual, a tiny minority of individuals here, and really we mustn't detract away from the fact that thousands of humanitarian aid workers have gone out there with good intentions and have managed to deliver aid and helped alleviate the suffering of thousands of Syrians. I think as an international community we need to be more proactive in taking some real measures against what's happening inside Syria. What we've seen is a lot of lip service and unfortunately no real solid action to address the needs of millions of people. And one of those, I think, a fundamental key point that we should be trying to implement as an international community that can put pressure on the powers that be inside Syria is to implement a no-fly zone. We would save thousands of lives by just implementing a no-fly zone, as was implemented in places like Libya and in Afghanistan, etc. So I think really looking at that, looking at trying to, and then after you've implemented something like that, then we can look at safer humanitarian corridors to get the aid into places where it needs to go, and some of the other wider issues of the fact that there's no electricity in much or safe running water inside much of Syria. We can't look at those issues until we look at the wider problems and try and put some real pressure on from an international community point of view. Certainly, I do think that is the case, and unfortunately, in the grand scheme of things and in the political sphere, the reality of the problem is that the one group that really matter, the innocent civilians, are being ignored. Really, their plight is being ignored, and their desperation and suffering is being ignored. And the sooner that the international community take responsibility for and take some real action, the sooner change will come. There are so many stories of hope. There are so many stories of hope. Survivors that have lost entire members of their family, but they've lived to tell the tale, and they are striving to just lead a normal life. They're striving to, children. I was at the Turkey-Syria border only last week, and a young 10-year-old girl who'd lost her mother on New Year's Day in an airstrike, told me how she remembers being lifted out of the rubble by a strange man and then being hurried across the Turkish border to a Turkish hospital to have her arm pinned. And when I asked this little girl what are your hopes for the future, she said she wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to just take that little girl home. I really did. The little girl was called Sujood, and having just lost her, she was visibly upset when somebody asked her about her mother. She's only lost her 8 weeks ago, but for her to still have that determination that she wants to pick up her life and do something with it, do something meaningful, and put something back into society, that is the thing that, these are the children we need to save. And there are too many of them being lost.